Spontaneous speaking video 58. What's up, everyone? So I'm here with my friend Ben, and we had an interesting conversation on Saturday that I was like, yo, you have to get on my channel. We have to discuss this because it's something that I've also struggled with too. And I think I've even put up videos. This is kind of like a branch off of the intuitive superiority video, and even my recent video on if you want to become great, then you have to put in the work, the effort, and all of that. But pretty much, I'm gonna have Ben take it away by talking about what exactly was this insight that you had recently that we were discussing on Saturday.
Yeah. So the issue was about, how do you go about using your gifts and your talents and abilities as a way of interacting with other people, whether by way of making them feel inferior to you, or maybe by perhaps feeling dissatisfied, using it as a way to say, who are my real friends, who are the people that I can really connect with, as opposed to other people. So it was just a matter of wondering about, how do I go about deciding whether I'm using these things as a way of actually pushing people away as opposed to connecting with other people.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you even brought that up, because I feel like this is a common trend amongst lots of people, especially those who call themselves intellectuals and everything. And I like the definition that you gave for intellectual. How would you define intellectual in your own words?
I would say an intellectual is someone who has an ongoing desire for intellectual enrichment, who desires to know truth, who loves thinking about ideas, their implications, who is not satisfied with a very simplistic answer to difficult questions. So someone who is like that, and it doesn't have to be someone who is extremely intelligent, has a high IQ, say Albert Einstein, or has nothing to do with how much you know. It's just a matter of your attitude towards life.
Yeah, I really like how you even brought up the fact not being satisfied with simplistic answers. There's a lot of people in the world that are just well, that's just the way things are. And even in Christianity itself, I'm really into apologetics, which you're part of the apologetics club and everything, and that's actually how we met. Because as soon as I did that, I was like, oh great, because I'm not into the whole idea of, faith is involved in Christianity, but I believe that you still have to have some type of rationality behind it, because especially if you want to try and persuade others, even if they don't join Christianity, or they don't adopt that mindset, they still have to, at least not have to, but it's still good to at least try and have a logical argument to have them be able to be oh, okay, I understand why you believe that, and I guess that does make sense, even though I don't really want to adopt it. But there's so many answers oh, well, that's just God, or that's just how it is. And of course we can't really figure out everything about God, but I think the idea of being in a relationship with God means that you should be learning more and more about him. And oftentimes people are just satisfied with the basic surface level, what I learned in Sunday school type of answers, and that's not, in my opinion, a good mindset to have, especially when you come across more logical, critical people, especially in our postmodern world, where everyone's, kind of deists in a way, where they believe that, oh, well, God isn't really real, or if he is real, then he created the world and he abandoned it, or something like that. You can't really just go to them and say, well, the Bible this, and use circular reasoning with them. You have to have some type of logical explanations behind your mindsets, your ideals, your values. And so Ben, you actually shared this in your Odyssey article, and I read it. It's a great article. I'm putting the link in the description below, so make sure that you guys read it. It's not a long read. And in that article, can you discuss pretty much the things that you wrote?
Yeah. So the article was, I titled it "Confessions," and I put a big large photo of a famous Christian theologian named St. Augustine, and I tagged that word to the picture because that word is really linked to him, at least historically speaking, because he wrote a very long book called Confessions, which was detailing his journey from being a pagan to Christianity, as well as the things he wrestled with while he was still a Christian. But I basically talk about some of the pitfalls that I have fallen into, and I'm sure that anybody else who considers themselves intellectually inclined, that they, if they haven't fallen into already, could be susceptible depending on how they handle things. So I talk about things like using, once again, your gifts as a way of wielding or building up walls between you and the people, because you perceive your intellectual side as the main way in which you feel enriched in life in general, and because you may not find a lot of people who are that type of people, you may feel like, I can't really find a lot of people who enrich my life, so as a result I feel isolated, which that in itself is not necessarily bad, but if that is the reason for why you feel closed off, then it can be a problem. And the other thing was about emphasizing how it can be easy to overstate the intellectual life. And what I mean by that is we're not just wholly intellectual beings. We have emotions, we have desires, we have attitudes about different things. And so we don't want to limit how we feel enriched with other people, or even in terms of how we feel enriched with God, to one particular dimension, namely the intellect, because otherwise we can compartmentalize our spiritual lives. So like, for example, I even talk about how it can affect your view of going to church. For example, I thought, because I had a very intellectual mindset about how church should be experienced, I began to think that pastors need to be scholars. Now, pastors should know what they're talking about, but I basically interacted with them in my mind as if I'm going to respect their word or what they have to say, then they have to be able to speak on the level of scholars. So use good arguments, know what you're talking about, things of that sort, and that can cause you to develop a very critical spirit, because you may miss out on negative wisdom, or you may miss the forest for the trees. And of course, I talk about also how that affects your experience with other believers, like saying that in the setting of small groups. I contrast saying a small group or Bible study is not an academic conference or a panel discussion or just anything strictly academic. Why? Because the people attending the event don't have advanced degrees, and plus the topic at hand is not wholly intellectual. It's multifaceted, and plus the environment, a spiritual environment, like say a Bible study or a small group, it's directly designed to connect you spiritually with other believers. Now, you may talk about ideas, but it's within the context of wanting to be edified, and different people of different kinds attend those things. People at academic conferences, people who are academically inclined. So the settings are not quite on par. So that basically affected my experience, because I was thinking that if I talk to believers, if they don't sound sophisticated, they don't sound like they really know a lot about what they're saying, then I begin to wonder whether they are people that I really should take the time to listen to. So, and of course, you can project what you expect of people out of yourself. Namely, you think of yourself as articulate, you think of yourself as pretty well informed. Well, then you expect that from other people, and when you realize that not everybody's well spoken, then you begin to look at them in that particular way. So that's basically in a nutshell what I talk about. Yeah,
and like I said, you guys can check out the article yourselves. I'm going to put it in the description, but I totally relate to what you said, because even as myself, like I do consider myself as an intellectual. I have ever since I was even younger, because I've always had a curiosity, and for things that weren't just simplistic. I didn't want just simplistic answer. Like, I wanted to know more. And I even everyone's parents and stuff tells them like, oh, you're smart and all that, but like growing up, like literally my grandmother, like everyone in my family, they called me professor, and I never really paid mind to that. Literally, I remember as young as I can be, they still do to this day. They call me, hey, professor. Oh, wow, professor this, professor that. And I never really paid mind to it. And then next thing you know, like, it wasn't until literally this year when I went to Ghana, then people who I was just now meeting, they were like, you remind me of a professor. And then, no joke, like this semester, I was in class and we were having like a small group, like kind of like meeting or discussion. And the teacher asked for like, us to discuss, what's our definition of, I think it was interdependent relationships or something like that. And I don't remember the exact definition that I gave in the moment, but I was explaining it to my group of 5. And one of them was like, you should be a professor. And I was like, whoa. And it like really, it did like kind of like starts like hit me like, wow, this trend of professor keeps on like coming up. Once again, even like just a few weeks ago, I was like talking to someone and they're like, who you remind me of? You remind me of Professor Xavier. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I have the same personality type as he does from X-Men. But anyway, all that to say is that I've always had like a mindset of like wanting to learn, wanting to, to really dive deep into rabbit holes and everything. And I do consider myself as an intellectual and everything. But with those type of proclivities, then you can either go one way, which is what Ben was talking about. Like you have this gift. That's a gift to have, and that doesn't mean that people who don't have that gift are inferior to you. But you now have this gift because with great power, with great talent comes great responsibility. So now you either have this gift to use it to trample on other people and abuse them, or you can use it to help them out. And I think that that's why I actually went into life coaching. That's actually why I write my blogs. That's actually why I come here and I do these YouTube channels and everything, because I think that because I have this gift, not only should I just be selfish with it, but I should definitely use it to help uplift and bring up other people. And I think that a lot of other intellectual people who have this gift, they use it instead to stamp on other people, and make them seem inferior in some type of way. I like the example that you used on Saturday. You said that men are naturally genetically stronger than women. But does that mean that women are inferior to men? Absolutely not. Women aren't superior to men either. We're all on the same level, regardless of whatever Facebook posts or Instagram posts you guys have been seeing recently. We are all on the same level, and pretty much just because men are stronger does not mean that we should abuse that ability. You explained it actually better than I'm probably doing right now. But did you want to rehash on that? Sorry for the slamming of the doors.
Strength is a good thing to have. Having knowledge is a good thing to have. Having strength is a good thing to have. But of course, you can misuse good things. So if I use my strength to harm someone, I am not using strength as it should be used. Mm-hmm. Likewise, if I consider myself knowledgeable and I use it either to make someone feel dumb or stupid, or if I don't even do that directly, but say I listen to them, but they don't sound as articulate as I do, I'm in my mind thinking, I'm not going to go to them to be edified, because there's not much they can contribute to me, because I need intellectually minded people to edify me. Right. And so, once again, making that a very one-dimensional way of viewing who can edify me within the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. So, but whether it be strength, whether it be wits, whether it be even athletic abilities, like I was telling you earlier, like say you had a professional ultimate frisbee player that came out one Sunday afternoon and just played ultimate frisbee with a bunch of guys. None of them were professionals, but this guy is. What if he were to evaluate their performance by how he competes? Mm-hmm. Well, he probably won't feel very satisfied, because he's like, oh, these guys they're not bad, but they're not I don't feel like I'm really getting much out of this sport, because they're not really competing. So every ability that you have is inherently good, but it can be used to sever your connection with other people, or to make them feel inferior to you, and that's never good.
Yeah, exactly. And I love another example that you even gave in the article, talking about how with these, I think I just lost it. Hold on. It's going to come back to me. Nope, I just lost it. Oh well. Anyway, though, I do totally agree with you, and I believe that, like you were just saying, it's just very important that we use this gift that we have to be able to help other people. I talk about this again in the intuitive superiority video, which is pretty much like another branch from this video even, where like a lot of intuitives, for those of you who aren't familiar with Myers-Briggs, intuitives are known as those who naturally have a advanced pattern recognition type of way of like, intaking information and all of that. And so Ben, he's not as incredibly versed with Myers-Briggs and everything, but I've informed him that he's an INTP, for those of you who may not know. When you look up even like the cognitive functions of the INTP, introverted thinking, extroverted intuition, introverted sensing, extroverted feeling, in that order, you can see how, like people like him are inclined to pretty much learn about the things that they learn. And that doesn't mean that they're any better than even an ISTP, who I've actually interviewed one, Jamila's older brother, on my channel, and you can see that he's just as intelligent. So that goes to even show that there's different types of intelligence, because in the same way that maybe Ben could be like intelligent in a way where it comes to like abstract concepts and theology, whatever the case may be, somebody could be athletically intelligent, and even just aware of their surroundings in certain ways, and they could see him as dumb or not really up to par with their level. So there's different types of playing fields that you're on. The same way that you may think that someone is dumb because all they talk about, or like they're not able to talk about intellectual matters and everything. They can look at you and be like, okay, well, you're dumb because you literally don't even know how to put on the right set of clothes. There's literally some people who are unable, like it takes them forever to pick out an outfit, and at the end of the day, it doesn't even go together properly, or something along those lines. And some people, it just comes really naturally to them, and that's a form of intelligence, And so it just depends on like what type of intelligence we're talking about, and we should not use this gift, whatever type of intelligence that you have, to diminish or push down other people and make them feel inferior, but rather we should use it to edify everyone else. And hopefully we can even learn from them along the way. And I think that that's pretty much the whole point of this video, to encourage you guys, those of you who actually do take the time to watch these videos and everything. I would guess that you guys are intellectuals, because not everybody enjoys watching videos that are longer than 5 minutes nowadays on YouTube, especially if people talking about, concepts and all of that. Rather, they'd watch prank videos and everything. But once again, this is the whole point. We're not gonna sit here and, bash them or call them less intelligent for those reasons, but instead we should use our proclivities to be able to help uplift and edify those type of people, and even ourselves in ways. And I think that's what I was going to say earlier. There's no problem, as you said in your article, with wanting to surround yourself with people who are on the same level. There's even a quote that says that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you have to go find another room. And to an extent, I agree with that, as in pretty much the overall principle of you should always be putting yourself in a position where you could learn. However, you can continue to put yourself in a room where you are quote unquote the smartest one, because then you can help teach other people instead. And I feel like you can learn from anyone, even babies. I've learned from babies. They haven't intentionally taught me anything, but just from watching them and seeing how curious they are with certain things, I get insights from them, And I think that to put yourself at a level mentally where you think, oh, nobody can teach me anything, or this person's dumb or whatever, and you just write them off as someone who's not able to edify you in any way, that's really limiting yourself. So there's no problem with finding people who are like-minded to you, but also make sure that, because even Jesus did that, Jesus was the smartest person in the room pretty much all the time, but he didn't use that to make everyone feel like an imbecile. Instead, he used it to teach everyone. And if you have this gift of intellect, use it as a sword to protect, and use it as medicine for other people. Use it as a way to even further express love to other people, rather than to just swing it around like aimlessly and stand on a high horse. And that's my whole message for today. Do you have any last things to say, Ben?
I think it's important to realize that, as you were saying before, there's nothing wrong with wanting to seek out people who have similar passions or who have certain similar ways in thinking about life as you do. But as I said before, none of us have complete control over who comes into our life in terms of who God places in our life to enrich us in one way or the other. I didn't choose everybody that came into my life from whom I have greatly benefited from.
Right.
And I haven't benefited from all of them in the same way. As I said, I have people who I greatly loved my time with them in virtue of certain conversations we have or about certain topics. With other people, not so much, but nevertheless, I have benefited from them. And so the point being is that the life of the mind is very important. Whether you're going to be an academic or a scholar has nothing to do with, per se, with whether you think the mind is important. Everybody should believe that the mind matters. One of the central commandments that we're given in Scripture is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. So the mind is crucial, but at the same time, everybody in the body of Christ can edify each other in different ways.
Right.
And so I would just encourage whoever is watching this video too, if you feel frustrated, maybe you just haven't met someone yet who you can connect with on a level, and perhaps some of it may have come from having misplaced expectations. I know for a fact when people react, whether by way of disappointment or feeling enriched, a lot of it depends on what they were expecting. And so if you're expecting everyone that you interact with to be on the same level as you are, you're going to be disappointed. It, once again, has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just a matter of how you go about processing life, or even in terms of what you like to talk about. So don't expect everybody to be of the same type. Otherwise, you end up being disappointed because you may try to control more than what you can.
Boom. And I guess that's all for today. So thanks, guys, for even rocking with us and listening to this. Make sure that you share it if you feel inclined to. Like, subscribe, talk about it, leave your comments. And Ben, thanks for even being on this video with me. I really enjoyed having you today, and I feel like you're definitely going to be in future videos. If you guys want to feature him in any future videos, you have any questions and stuff, be sure to just comment them. And I think that's about it. Check out the article. It's going to be in the description. And like I said, it's not a long one. I think it literally took me about 5 to 7 minutes to read. So check it out. Done.